Welcome to A Brief Pause. We continue our conversation with Jennifer Holland, award-winning author of Dog Smart. Today, we dive further into what she has learned from her 3 years of hands-on in-person research and how her relationship with dogs has adapted from these experiences. What do you mean by Dog Smart?
So my thinking was, first of all, dogs are smart, and honestly, I don't claim in the book that they're smarter than all the other animals. I mean, all mammals, have a lot of the kinds of intelligence that I talk about in the book. But my idea was, yeah, dogs are smart. We need to become more dog smart. So, learning about our dogs, understanding a little bit better where they're coming from. So there's that version of it. So it kind of means different things depending on how you think about it, but all of those are part of the title.
Yeah, and you mentioned the doggish as
Mhm.
I referencing the language. Do you speak doggish?
Yeah.
And I like that because it really is. All of us are trying to learn that language, and it's one of those. The longer I've been working with dogs, is more I realize what I don't know,
Hmm.
and I
Exactly.
really appreciate other people with that mentality because I think that's the only way that we may get anywhere because we
Yes,
think we have a lot
exactly.
to learn and more and more of these studies that you were seeing and putting in your book were so incredible. It's sort of like we're just scratching the surface, right?
Yeah.
Of some of these abilities that they have. Speaking of some, and you talk about nose smart as well. And some of the
Hmm.
facts that you put in there were so mind blowing
I
about
know.
what their nose can do.
Yes.
What was one of them, for instance, was they can smell, was it X molecules in a quadrillionth of.
Quadrillionth. Yeah, I couldn't even fathom what that looked like. I had to look up how many zeros. I think it was 15 zeros for a quadrillionth. But yeah, I mean that's so mind-blowing. We all know their noses are amazing, but to actually try to quantify that, and the scientists I met with that was at Auburn University who were doing studies trying to figure out what is that threshold, and they hadn't found it yet. He said, I'm not sure we have the technology yet to give them a low enough dose, to find out where that line is. So there's, as you say, we're scratching the surface. The tools that we have are getting better. We're, with dogs in an MRI, that kind of thing, we're able to look more closely and get more answers, but we're still a ways away, I think, from really knowing what is it like to be a dog.
Yeah, and what was one of the other ones was about a tree spelling things on the inside with multiple rings growing over it for a
Yeah.
number of years.
Yeah, that was amazing to me. I went out with some people who use the dogs for finding ancient remains, and they explained to me that there are, times when bones and remains get scattered, and over a long period of time, there may be remnants in the soil that actually kind of get pulled up into a tree that grows, and a dog can detect that. And I mean, they don't even quite know what that is in some cases with some of the remains, but they just know that dogs can find where things are buried even if there seems to be nothing left.
One of the things you mentioned about the nose smart, because I want to talk about how different we think breeds actually are after this information. When we're
Hmm.
talking about the incredible sense of smell and nose smart, we think of hounds, we think of scent dogs, but there was a mention in there that breed doesn't have as much to do with it as you would think. There was even a pug tested at one point.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. The reason I looked into this was my question was kind of, is breed, how important is breed? I mean, we've sort of, breed is a construct. It's a thing we've done. We've created all of these breeds. And certainly they lean in certain directions. There are certain skills that definitely you see in the selective breeding that we've, come to associate with certain breeds, rightfully so. But my question was, if you give other dogs opportunities to do things that you might not think their breed can do, do they can they excel? And my sense of things from talking to people and from that particular study, which I'll describe, was that there often that is the case, that other kinds of dogs can excel where you might not expect it. And in that case, it was a comparison between German shepherds and pugs on detection tasks, on nose tasks. expecting, of course, the shepherds to just blow these little guys out of the water for many reasons. And they found that the dedication of these pugs to the task and their excitement and their curiosity, and possibly because they're very low to the ground, despite their smushed little face and all of that, they really excelled, and they did better in some of the cases than the shepherds did at finding the scent. So just a little surprise that I'm sure would apply in other cases. I didn't see a lot of other studies along those lines, but my sense is that you give a dog an opportunity and they may really surprise you.
Yeah, it's incredible, especially when you break down how their nasal passages work and what
Right,
they're really
right,
capable of. We don't really know pugs to have much of a nasal passage. And
right.
so that's also really crazy. But to speak to what you're saying, you mentioned it's like one sentence in there, dogs are individuals, right?
Right.
That's something I haven't been able to put into words with my clients for years, or just people that ask me what breed should I get, or I
Hmm.
think I like this breed or that, and being like, what's your favorite breed, that kind of thing. And I find it harder and harder to answer. And it's
Yeah,
because it's down to the dog, just like you can't say, I like people. It's, well, I like
right.
that person and that person. It really, really rings true for dogs,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, and I say in the book, I think it's important. Genetics are important. It's if you are trying to decide on a dog, it certainly is valuable to read up on the breed and to know what kinds of things to, potentially expect. But especially if you're adopting a dog, just because it's a whatever kind of dog, it's not necessarily going to do the thing that you expect it to do. And that's important to know going into it for sure.
Yeah. Did you start to feel closer to the animals or to dogs in general or to dogs you were around? I understood Odin was your dog. But the dogs you do have at home, did you start to feel closer when you learned these things, or were you going home trying some of these strange tests in your house? Um, how's all your research affected your relationship with your own animals?
Yeah, I would say quite a bit actually. And I didn't expect that really. I sort of, and it was sort of hard to even quantify, but I just felt I was paying more attention. I was kind of giving them more credit for things. I was much less angry if they were doing something that I considered wrong. I was giving them more benefit of the doubt. If he's not doing that, there's a reason. Maybe he's not doing it. Maybe he's not just being obstinate. Although with my dogs, there's definitely a question. But and yeah, I just kind of I want them to have more opportunities. I'm much more patient on walks, for example. I try to give my one dog clearly loves to sniff. He's sort of my sniffer. And I will not rush him along. I don't think of a walk as we have to hurry up and move his legs to tire him out, but instead he needs to get out there and sniff and take his time and decide which direction we're going to go and roll in the grass a little bit and do the things that exercise his brain as much as his body, and that keep him curious and keep him feeling like he has some agency in his world. And so I definitely see a difference there. And I've had friends who read the book say that's like the first thing that they did. They found themselves changing was just patience on a walk, let them sniff, let them choose, all those things, because it's so easy to do and it really does make a difference for the animal.
Yeah, and I think there's a way to do that and still have control over your
For
pet
sure.
because,
Yeah.
that gets tricky. I'm in New York City and it can get tricky on the sidewalk to let
Yeah.
them have those opportunities, but it is important. Um, but, we're talking about letting them be dogs, which is incredibly important, and understanding what that might be. And sometimes if they're doing something, if you understand this is a dog thing and maybe I shouldn't, jump on them about it. But lest we forget that they can actually be manipulative.
Oh
And there
yeah.
was
I
this
think so.
amazing fact about how, there's a chapter about how them and wolves are not the same and how they cognitively function differently. And one of the coolest facts in there was that, one of the research tests had said that they cheat, where a wolf will try to, figure something out, but dogs will try to cheat the
Yeah,
system. Do you
yeah.
remember, or can you tell us about that study?
Yeah, I think the idea of that was that, this was Catherine Lord was the scientist who she raised wolves from, from the start and was really able to talk about how no matter how close you get and no matter how physically you are involved in the growth and evolution of this dog on a small scale or of this wolf, it's not going to be a dog. It's never going to be a dog. And because they are different animals, they're different species for a reason. And dogs are evolved to accept our help in a sense. And so they're more likely to look for another answer. They're not necessarily going to just keep at it. Whereas a wolf, and this may be overgeneralizing, but in these studies, the wolf will just keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. The dog is going to figure out a way around it, maybe, find another way, or in the case where there's people, look to the human and say, okay, what do I do? And that was just, I think a pretty interesting difference between these animals that we sort of start to think they're kind of, this is just a tame wolf living in my house, and it's not at all. It's really not. They're very, very different.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen studies like, they've evolved to have more human-like features for us, and different parts of the brain become larger or smaller based on interacting with humans because that has benefited them
Yeah.
over the years. And that's such an incredible interspecies situation we've got going on there.
Yeah.
But like I said, which one do we think is smarter at this point or better at communicating with the other?
And honestly, I think dogs read us better than we read each other too. So I think that answers your question, at least in that realm. I would say dogs are definitely doing a little bit better than we are.
Yeah, and if this was in, corporate setting with tests on emotional intelligence, I think they would win every
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They're pretty
Definitely
good at
true.
containing their emotions overall and dealing with the emotions of those around them pretty
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
My groomers read it and I told them that they could ask some questions because
Oh,
they're
great.
very excited. So before I forget and get in all of the trouble, let me ask a couple of questions here. Just first off, I'm such a big fan of Jennifer. She has my heart with this book. So that is from Wanda. Let's see here. We have this. This would be tough, I think, but I'm gonna try. What are three golden rules you would give owners to be better at speaking doggish?
I think, paying attention is important. Looking at the full context of a situation. So, if your dog is growling, it might also have its tail in a position that is saying something different. There's sort of a whole combination of things, as you know, that can be happening. And there's a lot of great resources out there with pictures that just show you, here's some body language you can learn, and when the ears are doing this and when the tail is doing that. So I think it's great to spend a little time learning, observing that. And just, I think, again, giving dogs credit for letting us know what they're feeling and trying to assess why, rather than just immediately getting frustrated or yelling or, reprimanding in some way.
I've noticed through many years that dogs are becoming smarter. Would you say it's true, or thanks to the internet, we're becoming more dog smart?
It's probably the latter more. We're just sharing more. But again, I think people are becoming more interested in this and more savvy, and with more positive reinforcement training, I think it's easier to get dogs to show their smarts, to really shine. So there may be some, we're letting more of the smart come out by being smarter trainers and just better owners of our dogs.
Sure. That's my guess too. I feel like again, the more I work with dogs, the more I realize what I don't know,
Yeah.
and sort of the more curious I get, and I have a feeling they haven't evolved that quickly.
Right.
You mentioned the fact that you can't shower around wolves because they won't recognize your scent. The research study that you looked at with a woman that was researching wolves versus
Yeah.
dogs, and how you mentioned the scent is very, very important for you to remain part of accepted in the pack and that sort of thing. Um, so as groomers, I think what she's referencing is, after we groom a dog, sometimes the dogs, if they're two dogs in the same home and now they smell different after the bath, they can
Hmm.
get really reactive to each other.
Hmm.
Oddly, sometimes one way very, very far from the other. Sometimes they get actually quite sexual and
Hmm.
sometimes they get violent with each other. Do you
Interesting.
know anything about that, or is that just, or we don't know that yet? We have to ask the dogs.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't have an answer for that. That's fascinating to me. Especially that it can go either way. And you wonder, is it, are there some scents that put them in one mood versus the other? And you also wonder, like, how much does say, the scent of the cleaning product actually, you know, cover the natural scent of that dog? It seems like, are they just confused? What's going on there? But it's a great question. I would love to. That's another good question to ask the nose researchers and see if they have any idea.
What's your plan for a next book? Because you had, the unlikely friendship series, which was hugely popular and on the New York Times bestseller list, right?
It was.
Um, yeah, unlikely friendships, which I mean, we all can't get enough of that.
It's true.
But if you're a little, really curious about what's going on in their brain, then this one is a huge, I mean, I can't believe how much information is in this book, but I can only imagine it's now piqued your curiosity. So what's your next plan?
Great question. I don't know that I have one quite yet, but there have been pieces of this that I thought about, what if I did a spin in another direction with this idea, or should I move to another animal and sort of consider some of the same things? I don't know that I'll do cat smart, but a couple people have suggested that. But I'm, absolutely sure that it will be something animal, something science, something personal, because that's just those are the things I love to do and write about. So I will let you know as soon as I decide.
So cool. What a life. So one more question. What keeps you up at night about human and animal relationship? After learning all these amazing things, do you sort of look at people and how they treat their animals and judge? Or are you bothered by anything?
I think I've always been bothered by, of course, the sort of bigger picture horrendous things where there's just really bad treatment of animals. I do volunteer for the Humane Society with the dogs that are and other animals that are brought in from hoarding situations and, fight dog fighting rings, that kind of thing. So I try to do a little bit toward, helping those animals to feel a little better about, what's going on in the world. But I think, also just I'm glad that people are changing their mindset about animals. And I think it's partly the tools that are letting us do that. It's partly just kind of a shift, I think, in how people think about ourselves and in relationship to other creatures. But there's still plenty of people out there who really don't see it and just think that, animals are beneath us and that they don't deserve equal treatment and that they don't have the same emotions, and they're just not, it's not important to them. And I want to see more, obviously, more people who are committed to that and really make that an important issue in their own lives.
Sure. Well, then, actually, let's end on a positive note. I would say after all of this research, was there something, and I know this is going to be a tough one, what's the most exciting thing that you know of going on now, like current research or a current study? Do you know of anything going on now that seems really exciting?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I'm excited about is that there's more and more centers for dog cognition and behavior studies opening up around the world, not just here by any means. And there's a lot of ways that citizens can get involved too, which I think is really great because the more people actually have, skin in the game, so to speak, the more, these things can expand. And there's lots of ways that you can, submit a questionnaire or, volunteer to bring your dog in, that kind of thing, and have your animal be a part of advancing this science and this knowledge. So I think, I won't name a particular study, but I think just in general, this move toward making this a field of study and really having people who are dedicating their careers to it and using the new technologies to learn more and more that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, there's definitely, if anyone out there has a dog that they would like to volunteer, I know most of these you have to look up which universities have current studies going on in cognition labs, but they love people to bring their dogs. And I know there used to be a website. I haven't happened to check recently, but Brian Harrow, we mentioned before, had a website called Dognition, I believe,
Hmm.
that you could do these amazing cognitive tests on your own dog at home through the website and contribute to citizen data. I
Yeah,
think that's amazing. I tell my clients about it all the time. It just seems so fun. And they're easy, fun in a gamified tests,
right,
basically.
right.
So that's super cool. Thank you so much for being on.
That was
I'm
great
so
fun.
excited to read anything else that you've written. Um, yeah, I can't wait. I can't think of anything more I'm supposed to say. I'm so into this book, I can't get over it. So
I'm really
go read it again.
I'm thrilled. Yeah, thank you so much. And it's available. Most of the online is the easiest way. My website, jenniferhollandwriter.com, has links to it. And Disney Books, it is also on that site, and you can choose which store you want to order it from that way.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to our conversation with Jennifer Holland. You can find her books at jenniferhollandwriter.com and also on Audible. And check out all of our past episodes on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, on any platform you can get your podcast. Let us know what questions you have about pets or any ideas you have for topics we should cover on future episodes. Till next time.